kick. DeJulius puts up a three. And goal!
Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman, right here on whatever podcast feeds you're checking us out on, whether that be Apple, Spotify, Google, all the good platforms. Talking Cats with Russ Heltman as well. You can catch the full show in audio and visual form there. I, of course, once again, am your host, Russ Heltman at bearcatstalk.com. Also, my co-host joining me this week, Neil Meyer of bearcatstalk.com as well, and the front office news.com. Check out both of our works there and all of Neil's work at those two outlets as we get into another edition of the show. Basketball schedule starting to take shape in the non-conference forum. We'll get into some news there regarding a rerun matchup from the 2023-24 season. A couple of rerun matchups actually already slated to happen. And then we get into a light period of portal contact in the basketball landscape. And Sage Tolentino has a new home for him to continue his college basketball career away from Cincinnati. And then to close the show, we get to the latest portal news for football. Will Jowon Briggs be drafted this weekend? Neil and I give our prediction there. And we close the show fully with a note on Corey Cunningham's passing. Just really sad development throughout the end of this week. The former Cincinnati offensive tackle graduated in 2018, was part of those early Luke Fickell teams that really helped set the foundation for the college football playoff run in 2020. But before all that, got to tell you about Bet Online. It's your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoffs. You get all the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, Neil, we start with the basketball side of things, and UC, according to John Rothstein, finalizing another matchup with Dayton at Heritage Bank Center in 2024. Probably going to be, I would guess, one of those mid-December weekends. I would imagine they're going to want to get this matchup on a weekend, kind of a Saturday night kind of premier affair, be able to fill that arena like they did pretty well last season and get a good turnout there in a game where Cincinnati fell 82-68 at the hands of Dayton, a team that they have mostly dominated in the historical series. Sixth most games against any opponent in the history of the team, according to Sport Reference, dating back to 1949 in their database. And they are 44-17 against Dayton since 1949. Overall, Neil, this sets up a non-conference slate that's going to feature Xavier at home. I would imagine second weekend of December. It's looking like that one's going to go down. At Villanova, which we know is happening on Tuesday, December 3rd now. You're at Georgia Tech as well as part of the home and home series, concluding that. Obviously started last year with Damon Stoudemire's team and dominating Georgia Tech at Fifth Third Arena. You welcome in Howard as part of the back half of that home and home, where you played at Howard last year. You're welcoming in the Bison this year. And then obviously the neutral matchup against Dayton. Right there, Neil, you could argue that's 3, possibly 4 quad one opponents potentially in the first 15 games of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the Dayton game, Russ. I think that's a substantial matchup, obviously due to the success that Anthony Grant has provided at Dayton since taking over at the Realm. But overall, this is a matchup where you bring two. Me personally, Russ, I think this could be a matchup you play every year alongside Xavier. I think a lot of fans would like to see that as well.
I'm with you. Every year, let's get it going. And can we get that? Let's get it a home and home. Can we turn this into a UD Arena and Fifth Third Arena affair as opposed to just Heritage Bank? It's cool to have the neutral site, but it's tough to find a worse neutral site than Heritage Bank Center. Just to be honest, it's not a good venue for any sporting event.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. And I think for those who remember the game last year, I thought it had been marketed maybe a little bit better in terms of on kind of both sides. I think looking at the arena, Russ, from when we were in there last season during the matchup, you look around the arena, it was nothing but baby blue. I felt like it was like, I think the attendance was 13,000. It felt like 11,000 purely dominant Dayton Flyer fans. Anywhere you looked, it seemed like it was Dayton takeover. And Dayton fans do that very well. They do travel. They do come out and support. But overall, I mean, you're looking at this non-conference schedule, Russ. Georgia Tech's going to be a tough matchup this season in the non-conference. Obviously, Damon Stoudemire from year 1 to year 2, you look at the recruits he's bringing in, and then you have Xavier, who's undergoing a complete rebuild on all aspects of things. Sean Miller, Xavier's losing Desmond Claude to the transfer portal. Yeah. It's a complete roster rebuild. They've lost 7 guys now, and they're overhauling. I mean, you look what they've done in the transfer portal. They're bringing in shooters left and right. Dante Maddox, a couple other guys. Xavier's going to be a tough team. They returned Jerome Hunter and Zach Fremantle as well, who missed all of last season. So it's still going to be a tough matchup there in the crosstown shootout. And then Villanova in the Big East Big 12 Challenge. I really like this draw. It's the first game of the Big 12 Big East Challenge. So it's on a Tuesday night. I'm really happy with how that matchup kind of went into our favor. It could have been a lot more difficult matchups, but I think Villanova is a game where they could easily go in there and get the momentum moving right. And then the non-conference, Russ, I mean, you're looking at it right now. It's going to be a gauntlet, 4 potential quad 1 opportunities. That's something that West Miller and Cincinnati haven't had in the recent years. And we saw it this season. You get those bigger opportunities in the non-conference schedule. Cincinnati might have been looking at a different opportunity come March this season. If they had a stronger strength of schedule in March or in the non-conference, it could have been a team vying for a NCAA tournament bid. So now they go ahead and they revamp the non-conference schedule with some great opponents, and it could be something that could really propel them heading this time next year.
No doubt. And the fact that you have all of these games already scheduled. Neil, do you think they need to add more in terms of another premier opponent potentially coming to Fifth Third Arena, or you go on the road, schedule another road game? Do you think they need to do any more besides just fill out the rest of the non-con with bye games, or does it feel like this mixture of 4 teams, especially leaving out Howard, feels like that's going to be enough to justify how difficult your overall conference schedule is going to be? Obviously, with the challenge of the Big 12 every single year, is those 4 opponents, are those enough opportunities to go? Maybe you're trying to go at least 3-1. You could probably get by with 2-2 and not have it ultimately hurt you, that non-conference strength of schedule. That is, I think it might be enough, but I wouldn't be shocked. And I think it could probably behoove them to schedule one more top 175 team or one more top 150 team potentially, just to make sure that schedule has no major holes in it for the committee to poke through at the end of the season.
Yeah, that's a great question. And me personally, Russ, I think right now they just fill it out with bye games. And my reasoning behind that is people also forget that the Big 12 is upping their conference games this season. So you go from 18 to, I believe, 20 conference games. There's 2 more opportunities there for your quad 1 opportunities. And right now, if I'm Wes Miller, I would love to see one more get added in. Mm-hmm. But if you fill it out with bye games, you can't really go wrong with that either, knowing that the Big 12 expansion comes into play this season, where you expand the Big 12, you get 2 more conference games, and everybody knows the Big 12 is the best conference in all of college basketball. So you add 2 more opportunities, and it could be 2 more potentially quad 1 victories or quad 1 games, quad 2 wins, whichever way it plays out in terms of scheduling. So that's where my standpoint is. But overall, non-conference schedule, I think it's looking great right now, but it could be looking, maybe, as you mentioned, get one more top 175 team. But in terms of reality, I think it comes down to them going to the buy-in games now, and then they're turning their focus to the Big 12 conference scheduling due to adding the 2 more conference games this year.
That's a great point, Neil. I didn't think about that when I was kind of going through my assessment, that they're playing 20 conference games now instead of 18. That's your extra tough opponent right there. That's all you need. I don't think they need to schedule 5 solidly difficult opponents especially once again, you're going to be trying to reacclimate a new roster, so to speak. It's the transfer portal era. We know there's always going to be 2 to 3, 3 to 4 new names that you're trying to get into the fold and get acclimated in the rotation. So I think the Bearcat Blitz statement affirms that they don't need to add anymore. I think you and I are kind of on the same page there, especially if, like, once you factor in those extra 2 conference games against both those teams, most likely going to be top 175 opponents. So there's your answer right there in terms of, do they need to add more? I don't think so. I think this is enough difficult games in the non-con to be able to justify how difficult you ultimately want to make a non-conference schedule because of the gauntlet in the Big 12. Going to be fun stretch. We'll see if they can lock in Sean Stewart over the ensuing few days. He is right on campus as we speak in Cincinnati as we record this episode. Can they get it done? The transfer portal waters have been very, very calm since news came down that Stewart was visiting. All hands on deck for that. Sounds about right. We'll get to it after this break on Bearcat Blitz. Bearcat Blitz continues right here on the Maple Knoll. What am I doing? I'm thinking I'm on the radio here at the Maple Knoll Radio Network, right here on the Believe Network. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. He is my co-host, Neil Meyer. There's so many different jobs. I get them all cross-wired every now and then. Basketball, the transfer portal contact, Neil. I texted you about it yesterday. They're loading the cannons, baby. They are getting them ready for Sean Stewart. There has been no contact of note for any prospects over the past few days. Nothing to note since we last talked on this show on Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah, Tuesday. So they're going after Sean Stewart. He is in town right now. They're ready to get it done. Commitment not expected, according to his dad. I believe he was talking to Columbus Dispatch a couple weeks ago, or a couple days ago, actually. Commitment expected to come down around May 6th. So we're about 10 days away from him committing. You'd love to get that commitment date moved up exponentially if he ends up loving what he sees from Cincinnati. But overall, Neil, I think it's a very exciting and kind of waiting on pins and needles time for Bearcats fans as the entire basketball staff tries to bag and land what would be, and I'll go ahead and confirm this as you retort with your response, I think it would be the highest rated recruit in the 24/7 sports era, at least one of the 2 or 3 highest rated recruits that they've ever brought in the last 22 years.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I believe it would be the highest rated recruit. I mean, Sean Stewart was the top 25 player coming out of high school. Things didn't pan out his way at Duke, obviously, in year 1, but you bring him to Cincinnati, if they are able to land him, it could be a substantial add, and it could be something that really bolsters this roster there on the perimeter. But overall, anytime you can get a caliber player like Sean Stewart to visit, even in the transfer portal. I mean, this was a guy coming out of high school who had offers from just about anywhere. I believe he had over 30 plus offers coming out of high school. You get him here on campus, and I mean, Russ, as you mentioned, it's been pretty quiet last few days, so they're going all hands on deck, and rightfully so. I mean, you watch the film from high school and what he was able to do at Duke in limited action, and the potential's there. This is a guy that could come in and make an immediate impact for Wes Miller and the Cincinnati Bearcats. So just getting him on campus, feeling things out, seeing what his options are. But you get him on campus for a visit here in the transfer portal. And as you talked about, his father did discuss his commitment plans. Looks like a potential few weeks before he makes that decision. But overall, you get him on campus for a visit. We've seen the kind of recruiting aspects that Wes Miller and this staff have been able to do and how they have been able to really address the transfer portal in the last few years, Russ. It's going to be definitely going to be something interesting to keep an eye on and follow throughout the next couple of days.
24/7 Sports actually, unfortunately, not operational. I think they're doing some site maintenance as we record this episode. But Stewart, right up there. He would be right up there in terms of the all-time rankings. 22nd best recruit in the class of 2023 on 24/7 Sports. On 3 had him as their 12th best recruit overall, number 2 power forward, and a 98 overall ranking. That was the highest ranking of any major service. Comes from a basketball family, Neil. His dad had an NBA career, 8 years in the NBA, dad or grandpa Mike played at Santa Clara. Stewart at Windermere High School averaged 20.5 points, 13.6 rebounds as a junior. They went 21-7 and then transferred to Montverde for his senior season. 6'8", 230 pounds, would just connect and ignite and just round out this roster in such a fantastic way and make this roster, Neil, the most talented it's been this century. I think you could argue that in terms of the star power, ranking wise in the recruiting portals, ranking wise in the transfer portal. When you think about what Simas Lukosius, what Aziz Bandago did through their first half of their college careers to elevate themselves to get to this level, to be able to play as well as they did in the Big 12 and be having expectations to elevate even more in year 2 with the Bearcats program. So exciting times for Cincinnati Bearcats basketball. I think they're going to be a top 25 team for sure preseason. I would be shocked if they're not an AP top 25 team heading into the season. We'll see how that all goes down. And especially if they get Sean Stewart, I mean, the sky is the limit. This coaching staff has the coaching acumen, the coaching strength with this amount of talent to easily get to a Sweet 16, in my opinion. Definitely chance for an Elite 8. And I don't say this lightly, the talent and the ceiling to get to a Final Four if they can land a guy like Sean Stewart. Big few 10 days, or not few days, I guess, just full 10 days that we have coming up before we get that commitment. A guy who did commit, Neil, Sage Tolentino. He is headed to UNC Asheville to discuss the rest of his college basketball career. Sage going from Cincinnati to UNC Asheville, 20 total minutes as a Bearcat, and reports that Wes Miller actually helped facilitate this move to UNC Asheville as well. I think that's just another good example of how even when things don't work out as Wes would have liked for Sage and the program at UC, he didn't leave him hanging. It's not just, oh, you didn't do enough. What we wanted you to do for us. You got to go figure it out on your own, my guy. No, they helped him get to this point. They helped develop him to this point, and they helped send him to the correct situation. I thought that was a cool development to come out of that story, and just hope Sage can find consistent playing time down there and really start to see his college career blossom after just 20 minutes total in 3 years in the college ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a great opportunity for Sage. And you see Wes Miller helping him land on his feet down there at UNC Asheville. But despite just playing 20 minutes throughout his Bearcat career, people might forget that Sage Tolentino was a high 3-star prospect coming out of high school, was committed to Auburn at one point. So the ceiling could potentially be there. Things just didn't work out here at Cincinnati. But it's a great opportunity for him down there at UNC Asheville. I think he could go down there and make an immediate impact right away. People forget that he is 7'1", but he can also shoot. And that's a key development that at that mid-major level down there, that could be somewhere where he really sees his game blossom and develop. So I think it's a great opportunity for Sage. I mean, he's a guy who, Russ, we have had many great interactions with. He's just a down-to-earth human being. So sad things didn't work out here in Cincinnati for him, but glad to see he's finding a new home very quickly at UNC Asheville.
Good luck to Sage, and good luck to the UC football team and their highest chance player to get drafted this weekend, Jowon Briggs. We'll discuss that coming back from the break. Will he get selected? We'll touch on the portal notes and get to the unfortunate passing of former UC offensive tackle Corey Cunningham to close the show right here on Bearcat Blitz. Final segment time here on Bearcat Blitz. I'm your host, Russ Heltman. He's my co-host, Neil Meyer. Catch us on bearcatstalk.com, and you can also catch Neil at the frontofficenews.com. Neil, we kind of continue the transfer portal theme, and we'll close it out with the Bearcats' latest set of news and notes on that front. Not a whole lot happening for the Bearcats football team in the past couple of days in terms of the transfer portal. They did offer the linebacker that I was talking about on Tuesday that I was, due to technical difficulties, unable to get the actual name of. Well, we got it now. Texas State linebacker Dan Foster. They offered him went from Marshall to Texas State last season, posted 52 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recovery, but did not necessarily impress snap to snap, especially if you're a PFF evaluator. 57.1 overall grade, 66.6 grade in run defense, but just a 54.8 grade in coverage, which that was obviously an area where Cincinnati's linebackers struggled tremendously in 2023. Did that in 575 defensive snaps. I think Foster could be a solid addition, and it's a spot, Neil, where they got to get some kind of depth with the exit of Dorian Jones and his 50-plus tackles and 400, maybe even been 500-plus snaps, similar to Dan Foster last year. So he is in the mix on the radar of the Bearcats, and off the radar is backup tight end Ferrick Falk. He has announced his transfer portal entry. The redshirt senior, he was in 5 games last season, played backup tight end and was a special teamer, and it was his first season appearing in games since entering the program in 2020. Not necessarily a huge loss, but notable that Ferrick Falk is entering the transfer portal. And Neil, we'll see if they're able to nail down Dan Foster, or I'm sure one of these other linebacker targets that will surface in the coming days.
Yeah, and it is an interesting position of need, Russ. Obviously, you lose a guy, Dorian Jones, who has played such significant snaps in his lone season here, but he was a guy that Scott Satterfield developed for the last 4 seasons. So it's definitely a position of need there at that linebacker position. So it's going to be curious. So I'm going to be curious to see how they address that position. But overall, as you mentioned, Russ, it's been pretty quiet outside of things there on the football aspect in the transfer portal. Obviously, it is a very special week in terms of the next development, though, in terms of the NFL draft, which we'll get into here shortly. So overall, it's been a pretty quiet week on the football front. I think all eyes have been focused on the other side of things, on the basketball and the hardwood. So, but overall, football portal, things could start to heat up very quickly here, but still haven't heard anything as of yet.
And obviously, I don't think people should worry about this. To be clear, like Dorian Jones was really, Neil, he was the only main contributor that we were expecting back that entered the portal. Other guys were just kind of fringe players, early young players. They haven't lost major contributors outside of Jones in this cycle, i.e., they start targeting some linebackers. There you go. You gets less and less transfer portal contact this period than you would have in a winter period, just given obviously the attrition you have for the roster coming off a fresh end of the season run. Jowon Briggs, hopefully we see him playing many seasons in the NFL. And Neil, I'm hoping the stars align finally. I mean, has it been since Kevin Huber that the Bengals have drafted a UC player almost 15 years? I might be missing someone, but they don't do it as often as they should. They could have last year with Ivan Pace Jr., didn't have that as a position of need, so they didn't ultimately pull the trigger. But Neil, even if they take Johnny Newton or Chris Jenkins or anybody at the top of this kind of day 2 pile of players in the Cincinnati Bengals defensive tackle radar, I think they should still go after and get Jowon Briggs for the value he could provide at the 237th pick, which is what they have as the last option for the Bengals in the draft, in the class of 2024, in this 2024 NFL draft pick slate. I think Jowon Briggs will most likely be a free agent, will most likely get to pick his team and pick the options that he thinks fits him and his family best for his playing career. But Neil, it would be really cool and I think really smart of the Bengals to go after him with that 237th pick.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Russ. I mean, we've been talking about it all week, how we'd love to see Jowon Briggs in the Cincinnati Bengals jersey. I mean, just think about it. He's from Cincinnati. He went to Walnut Hills High School. He has a family of 3. It's a great opportunity. He's transferred home, had a fantastic career at Cincinnati, but whatever team gets Jowon Briggs, they're going to get a lot of great things. A true leader on and off the court, a great guy overall. I mean, Russ, his character, his leadership has been fantastic. Overall, it's going to be a huge opportunity for Jowon Briggs, and it's going to be really interesting to see how he plans out, just seeing how he transpired at the Combine. I mean, 42 reps of 225, that's something that's unheard of. So not many people can do that. So opportunity to come back home is going to be fantastic if the opportunity presents itself. So overall, it's going to be really exciting to see what happens for Jowon Briggs over the next few days.
Right on the fringe, man. And shout out to Jowon for working his butt off and climbing from the 370 range a couple of weeks ago in the consensus big board rankings all the way up to 265 now, Neil. He is right on that cutoff of the overall top 7 round selection slate. 257 total picks in this draft. And Briggs does play a position of need, a position of value, and one that is not very deep in this class. So I think there's a decent chance he could get picked. We will see, though. I'm going to say he does not get selected, but it's like 50-50 right now for me. And ultimately, selfishly, I hope if he doesn't get selected, the Bengals are the first team to get on the phone and wanting to keep him in town and keep the family in town as well. Closing out the show with an unfortunate story, Neil. Corey Cunningham passes away at the age of 28 years old, played in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals, was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals back in 2018, and also spent most recent time the New York Giants, was a second-team All-American Athletic Conference selection in 2017, one of 3 captains in the UC senior ranks. He started 24 consecutive games at left tackle to close his career, 33 career appearances from his time as a redshirt freshman in 2014 all the way through his senior season. Just by all accounts, a great guy, great attitude, great personality, fun-loving, kept things light in the locker room. This is a story, Neil, that is really, really cuts close to home, and it's a sad day for the UC community. We want to send all of our thoughts here from Bearcats, from Bearcat Blitz to the Cunningham family, and it's just tough, man. You never want to see this. 28 years old, gone way too young.
Yeah, absolutely. And sending our thoughts and prayers to Corey's family and everyone who is involved with Corey Cunningham. But overall, Russ, it's a devastating day for the Bearcats community. Obviously, Corey Cunningham was just a guy filled with joy, always had a smile on his face, ready to come and make an impact in whatever way possible. But the thing that was so interesting about Corey was his story to how he got to the NFL. Was another one of those guys who came in as a true underdog, 2-star recruit at a tight end position, transformed his body to go on and have a great NFL career. And it's one of those days where you look back and it definitely hits home. Definitely hits home because he made an impact on a lot of people. He was a guy who came back home to Cincinnati very frequently to visit the Bearcats. So he made an impact not only made an impact for himself, but he made an impact on the younger guys here in the Cincinnati athletics program. So overall, sending our thoughts and prayers to Corey's family and everyone surrounding Corey during this tough time. But it's definitely a very sad day for Cincinnati Bearcats fans, for sure.
No doubt. Great words there from Neil, and it's part of the foundation of this program, part of the group that really laid the way forward for championship success, championship greatness, and ultimately laid the path for the 2020 class to get this program in this city to a college football playoff. And Corey Cunningham, no small part in that foundation, for sure. Shout out to the Cunningham family. We cannot give you enough of our prayers and our thoughts. That'll close out our Bearcat Blitz on the Believe Network, presented by Bet Online.
This is the second. 15 seconds left. Shot clock off. 4-point game. DeJulius puts up a 3.